Where's that?
What? No, that's okay, that's okay. Then you go.
Oh, I will go.
Yeah.
Frank.
Freya, go.
No.
No, you
Freya
move
go
over
forward.
here. And then
Yeah.
I go behind.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry.
No, and then we have to move her, otherwise she's stuck, okay?
Well, the only way to move her is you go.
Well,
move,
she
no, but
goes-
if she goes
I go
behind.
up and then
No,
she-
no. If you go behind Frank, we step.
No, how about she moves one
No.
and then Frank comes, no, Frank is
No.
there.
Jerry has to go
Jerry,
first.
Jerry come first.
Now.
Helen has
Then
to
I
go.
go.
No. Yeah, I think Helen has to
Yeah,
go.
okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Frank, you can go. Okay, hold on. Now. I don't know her name.
No, Frank.
Natalie.
Go.
Oh, I think Natalie, right? Josh, are we good?
Yeah, I think
No,
that's...
Franco.
No, yeah, I think
No, Frank can't go. Because I cannot go.
Oh.
If
Okay, how about
Oh, we
you?
forgot about you.
People
Sorry, mate. So you go. No. Oh.
Ooh, bumpy hill, no touch board.
No, he's stuck.
Now
because,
we're stuck, yeah.
Because I forgot.
Let's try again.
Yeah, you shouldn't have went for. Yeah, you should have let him count. I don't know what.
I'm gonna try to play with this.
Well, we need somebody there. We need a fourth. Scott. Okay.
Stand
Scott, do you
there.
want to stand over there? Oh, you want to stand over
No.
there? Okay, so now you go. No, okay. Okay,
Oh,
okay. Okay, Scott, do that. Great. Okay.
So she comes first,
I
right?
think she should. I think Scott should have one in front.
Okay, Josh, you're the stand
All
by.
right. Let's go to that.
Josh, you stand here.
You sit in front, I will sit back.
So Josh comes first, right?
Either or.
First. Now I go around.
Yeah, you have to go right.
And then Frank comes forward.
I'm not sure. What did you guys do before?
No, I moved one step forward,
But
right?
if he comes forward, then you go around.
No. If
No.
you can't.
He has to
No.
go.
If you go forward, no. Frank must go forward first.
Okay, Frank, come forward.
Now you go over to Frank.
So it has to be one by one.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, no, two facing the same direction
Right.
can't be
Yeah.
behind each other.
Okay, now Jerry comes. Now
No, I'm going
I think
forward.
you go one
No,
forward.
hold on. I'm not sure if she goes before.
No.
No, why not?
If I go for, oh.
And then he
go
jumps
around.
over you. I'm not sure. Because, yeah, and then
Then Frank go.
Frank goes.
Frank goes.
Yeah.
Or it rocks.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Go.
Jerry.
And then Jerry go.
Yeah.
Jerry, you.
No, then we're
Who
stuck.
said Jerry? We need like 3 people before anybody
Yeah,
moves over here.
then Natalie moves, right?
Natalie, yeah. Okay, Natalie.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now one of them, no,
Where
I
you
have
go?
to move forward.
Yeah.
Trying to think if no.
Yeah, and then
She must
Jerry.
no. You must move.
Oh, you move
You move
forward.
forward.
Then I
Yeah,
go
yeah.
around her.
Okay, Priya's done. No.
Then
you go around.
Now Jerry go.
Jerry goes here.
Okay, now hold on.
Now I move up and she comes
yeah.
up.
I didn't go.
Yes.
She has to go first.
Or
Frank,
or
no,
Frank
Frank
No,
and
Helen go is
Yeah,
okay.
no, Helen must go.
And then I go.
Helen go.
No, I go.
Okay, good.
And,
Josh moves
go.
one forward.
Hey, Josh, in your place. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Frank.
No, Natalie go
Now
now.
Helen come.
Okay, hold on. Now. No, hold on. Yeah, you.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
I can move
Now
on.
you can
Jerry
go.
move up.
Oh, wait, right there.
And Helen
Now you
comes
can
on
go.
this side.
Now you can go. You can go. Oh, yeah.
Got it.
Good job. All right, have a seat. Excellent.
Did it. Yes.
So you all are so polite. That is my first thought about the way you work together. You work together effectively as a team. Why I choose this one is because sometimes people get so frustrated, and they get frustrated that people aren't listening to them. They get frustrated and it's not working out. And when everyone is in a line, there's an interesting thing that happens where it's like the person on the edge will like know and no one will be listening. And I've actually seen a punch thrown during this exercise. So good job working it out, and good job using good communication strategies that essentially did not result into any destructive team dynamics. I think that's the interesting takeaway from this exercise that you all did. I was a little lax on the rules there at the end with Levy sitting off on the edge, because I could totally see you, Levy, as being the person on the side, like, no, listen to me. But he had a vantage point where it seemed like you all were more likely to listen to him because he could direct traffic effectively. Any thoughts in terms of how you communicated effectively, or any frustration points where you maybe used some EQ skills?
I think it's a lot harder to use EQ skills when you're like in this kind of environment where it's like you just like working like on a quick reaction.
Uh-huh.
Or at least for me, like if I like start thinking, okay, how am I going to communicate this? You just tell the person no or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, you all did that very effectively, but I've seen, sometimes when there's two people who want to lead, then their frustration happens, or if one of those people is in the middle and no one was listening to him. Jeff?
Well, I mean, I think to the degree, I think the frustration was always pointed at the problem itself and the exercise, and it wasn't about each other.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Do you have a comment, Karen?
I was just going to say that it was a little bit of an advantageous situation for her, because then you could sit here and view, you kind of have like a visual organization cue. As opposed to, it's hard when you're standing there in line and trying to arrange.
Yeah.
I want the documentation, and the first time we did it, and then we lost it.
I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. So like I said, I was a little lax on the rules because we started out with such a challenging piece. I've never done it with 5 people, but I did do a quick online, and I saw a solution for 6 people. So it's at least possible up to 6 people. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be possible up to an infinite number of people, right? As long as you follow that strategy, it just gets more and more complicated as you add one person. So let's move on to the next set of stuff. These I call see it my way exercises. I'm going to pose a couple of questions, and I'm going to have you all pair up and essentially try to convince the other person that your point of view is correct. And we'll see how you can use questions, how you can use a good dialogue to woo that person over to your side. So, the first see it my way question is a math problem, or a graph problem. I'm going to pull this up for you. Get the light off as I searched the internet for traffic jam solutions. There's a game called Traffic Jam. Did you think it was fun? A little bit? A little fun, a little frustrating? Alright. Here is a graph about how many hours of television Americans view each week. On the horizontal axis, we have number of hours each person views, or each person who was surveyed in this survey responded. This is how many hours of TV I view. On the vertical axis, we have the percentage of respondents who answered that way. So, how many hours viewed weekly by Americans? 10% of respondents said I view 0 hours a week. 20% of respondents said I view 1 hour per week. 50% of respondents said I view 2 hours per week. 30% said I view 20 hours per week. For purposes of this graph, this exercise, assume no one said anything besides 0, 1, 2, or 3. Does that make sense? Question for you all. Based on the data in this graph, how much TV does the average American watch per week? Think silently to yourself, see if you can come up with an answer, and then we will circle back and see what answers we have in about a minute or so. Based on the data in the chart, how much TV does the average American watch per week? Is everyone ready with their answer? Does anyone need more time? Okay, so let's see. What are our answers? What do you got? Johnny?
I have
No answer? Eric?
1 hour and 48 minutes.
1 hour 38 minutes?
48.
1 hour?
48 minutes.
1 hour 48? Okay. What else we got?
2 hours.
2 hours? Okay, so Levy, why don't you come over here? 2 hours. Anybody who wants to join Levy in 2 hours? 1 hour is 48 minutes. Go over and join Eric. What else we got? No other answers? Ellen?
I got 1.8.
Okay, 1.8. Come over here.
1.8.
Okay. Okay, so Eric, why don't you stand over in the corner and start a corner over there? Okay. All right, so we have 1.8 and 2 hours. Is there anyone else who has a different answer? Okay, so if you are sympathize with one of these two answers, then go stand with that person. Otherwise, maybe just come over here for an undecided group. Undecideds will be over here. 1.8 in that corner, 2 hours over here.
Oh, yes. Hey, Jenny, where you going?
All right, who's undecided? Or
I'm undecided.
okay, one undecided. Undecided? Okay, so you're both undecided? Okay, so the goal for the 1.8s is you want to try to get everyone to come over and stand in your corner. The goal for the 2s, you want to get everyone to stand in your corner. And we'll take a mental note of how many people you have now. So, however much you can improve your numbers is better. So if you improve your numbers more than they improve your numbers, then the 2s win. If the 1.8s, if you can improve your numbers more than the 2s, then you win. Does that make sense? All right, so you can come over and try to convince the undecided people,
I'm going to convince them.
or you could walk all the way across and try to convince the 1.8s. Whatever your strategy is.
Basically, I think many of you may have misunderstood the question. The question is not how many hours on average do Americans watch. We're talking about the average American. The average American, you've got 50%. That's the average American. That's the biggest number. And they watch 2 hours. So we're not talking about on hours, the average of the hours. We're talking about the average American. So I understand you guys may have slipped up a bit, but now with that clarification, I think this is the correct way to view the question. Okay. What do you guys think? You want to come?
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Okay.
I agree with you.
You agree with me? I appreciate that. You're not agreeing with me. You're agreeing with the statement. What do you say?
I'm convinced.
Agrees with me. Great.
I'm still undecided.
You're so undecided. Well, think about it.
It's average Americans,
Yeah.
average hours.
Yeah. And then based on this data, 50%, that's the average American. Can't really question it. What's, Josh, what's the hesitation?
Well, I think this is just a mean versus median question.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I understand linguistically where you're coming from in terms of the question, but I don't know if I agree that that's what's being asked, even though I understand what you're saying. Trust me, I do. The way I always read a question like that, and the way it usually ends up when they're talking about these things, is not median, but mean, which is the 1.8. So that's why, although I understand why, at first blush, especially when it's presented on a chart like this, where you see that big 50% spike.
Isn't the mean in the middle? That could be 1.5. There's three. There's average, median, and mean. So the mean is
Yeah,
in the
well-
middle. So it would be 1.5 because you take, since there's 4, you take the middle one. Then the median would be I don't know which one's which actually. It would be 1.8.
that's right.
But it's really.
I do what I'm doing. I'm not moving to your group. I'm moving to undecided because I think the question is vague.
Okay, well, I think the question is, the question is absolutely designed to be vague. That's why we have the two groups. Consider this.
I agree with George.
Consider this. The question is designed to make you think twice. So the question, the way we've designed it is you automatically think, okay, yeah, you do all the calculations, it's 1.8. But you've got to always give that double take. And the way we're supposed to be thinking is actually, hold on. Oh, let me read this 100% correctly. And then let me get to So the fact that most people thought like this is actually proof. Most people thought the 1.8 is actually proof that the real way you're supposed to be thinking about it, because it's not supposed to be an easy question. It's supposed to be like a little bit of a trick question. You with me, Jared?
Are you convincing me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I haven't got undecided.
Alright, so let's take a stock at this point. So let's get the 2's back in this corner, 1.8's in that corner, undecided's here. Let's see where we are. So go ahead and pick one of those 3 spots, or if you came up with a different answer. Okay, so now we've got, no one is standing in the 1.8 corner. We've got 4 undecideds, and we've got a good chunk of people in 2. So let's take another 2 minutes to make your final decisions about where you want to be, and then we'll conclude and discuss the exercise.
By the way, I'm open to hear your arguments.
Well, no, what I'm going to say is that now as a member of the undecided group, I think this is the proper place to be because of the vagueness of the question, and the fact that there's legitimate debate to be had about where they're pointing you in this question, and whether it's meant to be one way or another is unclear, and I think if it's meant to be a trick question, then that all the more makes this a good place to be in terms of undecided, because that lets us understand it from both angles.
I think your point is correct or undecided. Hold on, Freya.
I think we're going to
To cast? No.
Okay,
No.
let me hear out.
Let's not trick ourselves. Absolutely, this question can be viewed in 2 ways. We're all MBAs that we get. It's not about right or wrong. It's about making a decision based on the data that you have. So the fact that there is 2 camps is right. There's no wrong answer to it if you do a test. But the point over here is to make a decision. It's not to. We all agree. We all can state openly that that it can be viewed both ways.
Oh, but I think this is a decision. It's a decision to recognize it from both ways.
But if
No, I have
everybody made that kind of decision in life, well, we could go both ways, where would we be? You have to say, yeah, we could go both ways, but I have to
Well, but I'm on the
choose.
side of additional questions, and I would want to talk if I
Exactly.
made the graph, and then I could determine which way I should lean, but until I know more information, I have to stay where I am.
I think
What
what
if-
is the definition of average? To me, I mean, that's not clear.
I see you want to
Because
come over here,
what-
so just answer the question.
Because, I'll point out something, because let's say I don't watch any TV, and Josh watches like 24 hours. I mean, which one is the average, right? You can't put it in the center and pick the mean or the mode. So
Well,
the
here's
question here is very vague.
my problem with the interpretation that 50% being the definition of average is that suppose you have 2 bars, right? You have only two options or 2 situations where people either watch 1 hour or 2 hours. So you have 50-50. Which one would be the average then? You have to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you have to average out the actual hours divided by the population.
In that case, you would say the average is between 1 and 2, because that's what it is, if the data was so. But the data is not so.
Why do you think
Because the data shows clearly that 50% is your average American is going to fall into that 50% bar.
so? That's a maximum.
What do you mean that's the maximum?
But I have a question, and like,
It's not
let me
the
just, if this
average.
wasn't 50%, this was 49%, you would start doing averages.
Yeah. We still consider average. I mean, this is a matter of principle. You
Yeah,
can't
is it truly a matter of a majority issue?
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I think it's majority over the rest of the
That's
the
still not to me. But how we interpret the data shouldn't change when the actual number is different.
Well, I mean, and just to.
No, as I said,
as
the
a
average-
first matter, if it wasn't 2, if this went on to like between 0 and 10 hours, and it was only, the highest percentage one was 21%, does that become the average American then?
Yeah, the average, that's my point that I'm trying to say to you, that the average, it's not based on
So
number
you're going
50.
by the maximum.
It's based on, and it's a
I don't
very
think that's the
significant.
No, yeah, but I don't think that can be, because like in the example where there's a lot of them, just because one group has, a 1 or 2 percentage point doesn't make them the average of all. I mean, that's actually only a small percentage of Americans. So to get an actual average, you're gonna have to go back to math, which either puts you in our undecided camp or over in the 1.8 camp.
And the other thing is,
I think I think the fact that it's 50% for sure shows on an average.
That's
Not
not
a thing.
average, that's the maximum.
Why is it the maximum? Could be 60, could be 70, could be 80.
No, the data shows here that, 50% of Americans view 2 hours of TV time. So that's like the maximum. Again, you see, there is like boundaries. 20% watch 3 hours. So You know, that's not the average. You can't go by the maximum. That's my point.
All right, let's take 30 seconds and then go to your final decision point.
It's average because it's 50%. Okay, that's the final statement.
We shouldn't change our way of interpreting the data just because of the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we decide should hold true
Regardless-
regardless of what this
regardless
graph
of the
showed or
numbers.
if the graph were
Yeah.
changed. The thought methodology should be applicable the same way, that you come with whatever the same result is. And the fact that even a little bit of changes to this graph changes kind of your approach and you have to go to a different method, I think that's why people should either consider it undecided
If the graph,
and acknowledge the ambiguity
Go
of
to
it,
your
or
make your final decision at this time and go to
Let's have it.
wherever you stand.
convince
Okay, excellent. All right, so we've got a group of people in two. Oh, 1.1.8er. Okay. All right. Any last minute changes?
Well, because that's the only way it's consistent. If we interpret the meaning of average American as being a numerical, thing, then that way we don't have to change our interpretation when the data changes.
Okay, good. All right, so let's everyone have a seat and let's think about how we did this. So a couple interesting things I want to comment and discuss on before we get to what was the quote-unquote right answer. Let's talk about convincing strategies, and let's talk about the dialogue that was used for convincing. What are your thoughts on what worked well and what didn't work well? Levy.
Well, our first strategy was to actually walk over there.
Okay.
If I would have stayed there, I think it would have strengthened us versus you. That was just one strategy I employed.
Okay. Yeah, that was interesting, the way you convinced a good chunk of people to at least move off. And I noticed a couple of things that Levy said that were interesting. One, he started his statement with, all right, I think you guys may have misunderstood.
Yeah.
And then he explains, and he says, so you may have slipped up on this. Does anyone want to change? Now, that surprised me how well that worked. Was anyone offended by those two statements? I think you may have slipped up. I think you may have misinterpreted the question. Yeah?
I feel Josh is saying that this question is tricky. Maybe it's a better way to say it. So it's more about the question, the way the draft is tricky rather than saying you split up on the question.
But still, it worked. So maybe something about the power of persuasion and the confidence with which Levy said that was an interesting point. Josh?
I was going to say, I think Levy came out of the box very strong and very confident in his position, and that just as a very kind of unambiguous opening, even though we're talking about ambiguity, he came out, he was very sure, he was very, he came right up to everyone and was like, look, this is what it is, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. I think, it's a very appealing or convincing way of approaching things.
Okay, I'm free.
I think the confidence was like really great the way he opened up, but I'm not sure if as a manager, if my manager comes up to me and says that if I were I would be cautious a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never seen quite a clear example of that. Something that I thought would offend most people and was so successful.
It's a different environment.
Yeah. Okay, and so another interesting thing about speaking of different environment is I usually give this question with people who are not business students. It's just kind of general audiences for the most part. And you had a very interesting interpretation of the numbers. I think everyone got quickly to the numerical average of 1.8, but your question was just into, is this a trick question? And what is being asked? And I honestly had never really thought of that. And to your point, I'm going to think about how I could clarify this question, but the answer I was looking for was the 1.8. And like I said, often people will just look at this and they won't even look at the wording like the average. But I'm moved by Levy's argument, the average. What do y'all think? Do I need to change the wording of that question, or to Zhang Ning's point, is the way this question is worded, is it correct? And the only way to consistently answer this question is with the 1.8 answer? Yeah.
I don't think so. If I was doing the same thing to argue with myself, if I change the 50% to 40 and maybe you have a 30%, what is the average? There's no, if that's the case, there's no obvious average. There's no 50%, but the number will still,
Yeah, yeah.
numeric average.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I was a little worried until that argument came up. I'm like, oh gosh, did I get this wrong? Yada yada. And Jing now saved me really. He's like, well, what if there's 50% was 1 and 50% was 2? What would the average be then? And Yang just expanded that argument. Josh.
I think maybe instead of asking how much TV does the average American watch, is how many hours a week, or what is the average number of hours a week watched by Americans?
That's not, oh, that's weird.
Average number. Okay. Yes. Yes. Good point. So, question for you, Letty. Was there any point where you were slightly swayed to change your answer?
They had good arguments when they came out with what they were saying. If we change the numbers, we change the chart. I don't think I was swayed. I think I'm still going to ask the question. If that's what you were hoping for, then what would be the other view? If we were to reword it quite clearly, because I think ambiguity is in the. I thought ambiguity was in the question. But if you're going to reword it clearly, then what would be the two sides?
Well, I'll tell you that the main thing that happens are people that just don't understand the math of what average is, and they think, oh, you're just going for 50%, that means average. There's no mathematical definition of average, and typically what happens is only a few people will know that, and they'll say, all right, this is the mathematical definition of average, you should come over and talk to me. Sometimes it's a really smart analytical person that doesn't have the best convincing skills. And I've actually seen situations where there's one person in the 1.8 corner, everyone else is in a different corner and saying, come over to the 1.8, come over. And the 1.8 person's like, no, I can't because that's what the definition of average is. So I'll think about how I could word this for smart business students like yourselves to avoid that confusion. That was also an interesting point you brought up, that the fact that you all chose 1.8 is proof that it's wrong, or proof that you're in the wrong spot. Any other comments on that before we move on to the next exercise? Yeah.
I want to explain that when I went to 2 hours corner, because I did a wrong calculation, I actually exclude the 10%. I thought they don't watch TV, so they're not a TV viewer. If you do that math, it's still it's the same as 2 hours. That's why I went to 11 at first. But I did it again. I kind of tricked myself at first.
Okay. Good. All right, let's move on to one more, and then we'll take a break after that. We've got one more see it my way exercise, which is a little more ambiguous. You'll look at this one and you'll say there's definitely not a right or wrong answer, and you'll just have to rely on your convincing skills. This is an example that I was inspired to create as Donald Trump rose to prominence as a politician, and people began questioning his business skills and the ethics of a couple of bankruptcies that he was involved in. So I did some research in terms of what actually happened with these 4 bankruptcies that Trump was involved in. And the information was a little bit hard to come by, but I've pieced together something that I think is a clear story for us to think about and evaluate, and there'll be one question that I want you to answer, summing up all this information. So let me take you through the points that I've collected. So, point 1. In 1991, Trump Taj Mahal entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy with an estimated $1.4 billion in debt. Now, $900 million of that debt was personally guaranteed by Donald Trump himself. So, 1991, his Trump Taj Mahal goes into bankruptcy. They owe 1.4. Donald Trump had guaranteed $900 million of it himself. Point 2. According to the Washington Post, although Trump owned hotels, skyscrapers, casinos, and an airline, his debts exceeded the value of his properties by hundreds of millions. So he has $900 million personal guaranteed debt, and he has various hotels, casinos, yada yada, that aren't worth anything near what he owes. Trump could have been taken to personal bankruptcy court, and he would have lost all of his wealth, most likely. However, the Trump Taj Mahal and other projects, for the Taj Mahal and other projects, the creditors had lent Trump so much money, a total of $3.4 billion, that if Trump went bankrupt, the banks that lent him the money might have gone bankrupt as well. So, Trump convinced the creditors to lower his personal debt by $750 million, i.e. from $900 million to $750 million, and lower the interest rates on outstanding debts to a level that Trump Taj Mahal could afford to pay. As a result, Trump was able to avoid personal bankruptcy court, and Trump Taj Mahal remained open to continue to pay its debts. Josh.
Is it, they lowered it to 750 million or by 750?
By 750 million. So it was 900, and it was lowered to 150, I guess. So the question for you to consider is, should Trump have been made to face personal bankruptcy court? Anyone have questions about any of this information first? All right, so take 20, 30 seconds, come up with an answer for this question. Should Trump have been made to face personal bankruptcy court? Okay, does everyone have an answer? All right, if you think yes, go over in this corner. If you think no, go over in that corner. If you're undecided, come into this corner. Yes is over there. No's by the door. Undecided in the middle here. Okay. All right. So where are you at, Yan?
No.
No, yes, undecided.
I'm going undecided first.
Okay. So, all right. So same game. So we have two over here. If you can increase your numbers, then the yeses win. No's, if you could increase your numbers from 5 to 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10, then you really win. So let's take a few minutes and see if you can come up with a good discussion strategy, a good persuasion tactic to get people over to your corner. Same thing for the yeses. See if you can get people over to your corner. So I will let you freely intermingle and discuss.
This is where I feel as a board nurse,
I mean, I think
if
the
I
basic
owe
thing is that they're
anyone,
planning for this.
I am on the line for that. I have to pay my debts, right? Why is he not in the same boat?
Their doors open
Two,
as much as you pay fine.
that
This
is
takes
like
from the
extended
person.
debts.
I do it with
To
it.
credit, talk about this.
The reason I
We don't
think
exist
that
anymore.
he should have done
Make
the
a private
event
session if they
before
were
is
that
because let's say
kind of
if I
risk.
have a debt,
So that's why I
general public has
should
said,
pay
you have to
that.
pay your debt.
Are you guys on the
Otherwise
fence?
you run into risk of not having any
I'm not convinced, but if that's the case, then why
loans
the
and
US
things
government?
like that. Because the
Say
general
really
public, if I have
They
it,
could just go back to
not all of them,
them.
some have already
I
come
think
up
there's
with
one
that,
that doesn't exist
can
anymore.
take a
Yeah,
business
one of them, but
forward.
I think you have to
And
take
it's
it
not,
on a
it's
big
not like, you know, hundreds of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Have a bigger individual, you have a
Why you
big
should
impact to the whole system.
not have to
I
pay.
accept what you're
They
saying,
don't-
but I
we
think the
don't think
important thing is
reasons
that,
like this
and again, this is
was
what I'm
like a
saying,
stepping
is
stone
that
to what eventually did
as
happen.
much as I don't
When
like
they started
Trump,
doing
and I
things
think
like
that,
this.
it's easy to,
Well,
like, give
yeah,
them a hard
because
time.
I work also, when I'm working
And there's
in
no
my
question you got
industry, there's a
degree
bank
of
rate
special
restructuring
treatment.
all the time, so
That's
I
how
don't
it
have to,
paid.
that
But the point of this
restructuring, I don't have to
is,
say
in
bankruptcy is
terms
always
of
next,
kind
right?
of
You always
at
look
least
at big
fixing the
pictures,
question
which
of this
have
personal
to make
bankruptcy.
sure that
It was a business decision by the banks
I agree
to
with you.
do what they could to try and keep their doors open, and it's a matter
Well,
of
the fact is,
contract.
it's also looking at the case, I mean, I
And
think
if they have the
I'm not
terms
talking
in their
about
contract
contract,
with him
but
to allow for this, and they did it, you may say, well, that's unfair, they wouldn't change it for me, but unfortunately for you, but it's a matter of, it's unfair, but it's not illegal, and it's not, it's within their rights to do so. Because if they owe, if you owe them so much money that you going under would have meant them, then they probably would have done the same thing for you. It's not,
So now the thing is, you know, let's say you own
So
a
that
house
is
that you
bankruptcy
can't pay
was
your mortgage,
boarded in
and the
that
banks
it
come
allows
up
a
to
common
you
grant.
and
Grant
they
doesn't
foreclose your
afford
house and
sometimes
things like
people
that.
do that, but that's more
Which is only like, let's say,
less than
200
1% $1,000
There's no
price
question,
to have
but this is the nature of better or worse the countries, that if you had a really, really nice house, they'd probably work with you to make things, because they don't really want to own it. No bank really wants to own a house, like, that's not their business.
Come on, even the personal debt, bringing it down by so much, I can understand that people you get a little bit of relaxation. It seems like here, he was like giving so much special treatment, which is
So
really
at that point, it's
unfair
quite clear that it's
to the
quite a
rest
clear
of the
decision to say,
public.
look, as much
It
as
was
we
like, you know, I can think that
If you go
for
bankrupt,
the other
thousands of
part
other
of the
people are going to
debt,
suffer
the
as well.
banks can come and say, hey, we will
So
work something
you have to look at it like
But
that.
the
and say,
personal, I
okay,
have
like,
a problem with that.
and kind of from the next point, yeah, obviously banks will be more careful than you should be.
So at the law school, I know how it is,
I don't
like
know.
that.
I don't think
This
so.
isn't even an area
Like
that
91
law is
wasn't
good at.
just the beginning of
But
it. Because they
the fact of the matter is that
produced
things like contracts control, and if the language of the contract allows for
We
this.
don't know what's
And the
going
two
on.
sides, all I know is this, but if it happened, and
But do you
the
think
courts
it's
didn't
fair?
actually.
Economic environment of America, but at the
Then
end
you
of the day,
can
it's
probably
creating
think
more
about
jobs.
whether he
Spread
deserved
thousands
that
of
or
jobs.
not.
And this is where it's hard because
Nobody likes
when
it.
you go to law, they really
You need to
break
hate
you with this whole
things.
concept of fair.
But you
You
have to
can't
make
look at things as fair or
rational
not fair. You can
decisions.
look at it as it matches the language of the law or the language of a contract, or it doesn't. The fact that it's
You're gonna
unfair.
hold the person liable,
Would say that
they're gonna
just
force
in
you to
case
bankruptcy.
you fail, they
Okay,
will
yes, you cause them much
deduct
pain.
and let you
You've
only
got
pay
it. But
But
$150 million and
here's the thing is that I'm sure it didn't say that, but I'm sure what it said is something to the effect
It's
that
a-
the bank
it's
has
a little
the
ethical
right,
question,
because it's
like,
their money, to
you know,
either
we have an ethical
relax
question,
or change the
okay,
terms
do you
based
decide
on
what you take?
what is beneficial to them.
And,
Because that's the type of thing
I
that's
think one of the
and so what
theories
happened is
is,
a business, as a pure business decision, the bank said, look, we can go down with the ship, we can,
Yeah,
as a principal matter, because it's fair.
that was something it's for, or one of the theories, the greatest good for the greatest man. That's what it is. So you can't- yeah,
I feel that there is so
can't
much
get
between
all
all this high level influential
But for me, I'm not-
so much
I'm not-
politics and
Okay, but
so
see,
much
this is what I think, I think you're letting the distaste for Trump color the situation.
going on there that
But that's the thing, on that part, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would have loved nothing would have kind of made me happier than to watch Trump go down. The fact of the matter is that as a business decision, as a matter of contract law, it's not that way where you can look at it and say, you know, it's like, I can shutter my business, my bank, and let it go under because I really don't like Donald Trump. Or I can take less money, a lot less money, but if we can stay open, I can come back to work tomorrow.
I mean, think about all this now, a lot of other politicians who are contesting against me, they're bringing all these things up.
All right, let's do a quick temperature check. Why don't everyone gravitate back towards their spots in the next 30 seconds or so, and then we'll have another quick finish-up round.
So do we have
Your
any
question
person
is all based on
who's ready to move to the yes,
bank
yes,
policy,
or no?
which obviously.
No.
I was gonna say that, you sure you don't want to stay and then I'm feeling more comfortable? Now that we all don't like Trump, but we're just acknowledging the reality is that.
Banks lending out responsibly, all banks were lending according to the same regulations. They're all-
But I don't really have that trust in
So they're all under the
the
same
banks
regulations.
either,
Where those
because
regulations
we
from?
have seen
Yeah,
in the
the question
past
was,
that
should
they
banks be
do
lending out?
things
Yeah,
based not only on the
But
business
the
front,
fact is,
they
in
do a
the
lot of
environment
things
that we're in,
behind the
99 to
business
1.
front.
Should,
And
should they put off
Like, you know,
Trump
it's one of those funny little things that it's like the SEC, Securities and Exchange. All those people used to be the CEOs of banks and things. Like, so when they write the rules, when they even enforce the rules that exist, it's their friends that they're talking to. They might as well be playing golf all day. It doesn't have to be a courtroom. And so I agree. It's in terms of, the question is about fairness, wildly unfair. Don't argue with you. If the question is, you know, as a matter of the numbers and the law, should he have had to go to that particular court versus the, you know, personal bankruptcy versus the business bankruptcy? No, he made it, you know, through contracts, through agreements that he could go to business
Like, we don't have the
chapter
numbers, so I think it's hard for us to say whether
as
it's
much as
goes
we don't like
bankruptcy
that,
or whether it's not.
there's a reason
I
it
need more
went there.
information
They
so I can
prosecuted it at a
make a
very high
decision.
level.
Well,
and said,
that's right.
there's nothing we can do to
We don't
really
have
enforce it to
information, but
personal
the
bankruptcy.
banks obviously made a
That's,
decision based on.
so
on
that
business.
purely the question, should
And
Trump have
obviously
been made
realize
legally?
Either they were getting more money.
Would I'd love to have seen it happen, yeah, it would have been
Or,
great because.
in the long term,
Trump
I
is
think
kind
I'm
of
giving
the-
up to the
But either way, they did it. They
Oh,
weren't.
no, I see
There was,
your.
there's obviously a loss.
I
All right, so
How
big
start to
was the
walk
loss?
towards your final decision, and we'll just wrap it up in about 20 seconds here. So gravitate towards your final decision.
And that's really the question. And obviously allowing him to remain they decide.
I
Unless I'm
agree with
also-
it. If the question was, would it have been fair to make Trump,
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been fair.
Yeah.
But would it, is it right?
It's
No,
not
it
because
shouldn't
you
have
are
had to.
not unconvinced. It's because I think this simulation is one.
All right, is everyone at their final decision point?
I'm still gonna go to yes.
Now stay here.
I'm gonna go to yes too.
Are you still on
Okay.
yes?
All right, go back to your final decision points. All right.
What?
Good.
Yeah, well, I was saying, I'll be prepared.
So this is a great example of how no one changed their mind. But you had some great arguments. We can talk about that. Why did no one change their mind? Or what sort of arguments you tried to get them to change their mind and why that wasn't successful? Here's some thoughts on that, Levy.
I think, and it's probably counterintuitive to everything you're trying to teach us in this class,
Okay, fair
not
enough.
everything, but I think people relate to this emotionally. And in this scenario, they will come out with rational reasons why they believe in it, but deep down it's really based on an emotional choice, and therefore it's a lot harder to change that even with, even unconsciously I would say that, subconsciously, sorry. People don't realize that it's an emotional issue. I think it's a lot stronger issue. The previous question was purely irrational. It wasn't. This is much more emotional, and it's much harder to change somebody's minds, even if they're not going to admit that it's an emotional decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an emotional decision, and I think it's harder to change, to your point, exactly. And these are the kind of things that you're going to face, not only in your personal lives, your professional lives, people who have an emotional point, and you don't agree with the rationale behind their emotional point, but people are very reluctant to change. You all are familiar with that, right? You've seen these situations before where people just don't change, to Levy's point, because there's an emotional component behind it. We've got to think about how we can have a conversation with that person. Can we just say you're wrong? Do we need to be conscious of not putting them into an emotional hijack situation and making them hate us for the entirety of the rest of their career at that location, at the job location, at that position, whatever? Right? These things can happen in a minute, and you can get stuck in a situation like this where someone just won't change their mind. And I think we saw a little bit of that the last exercise. I mean, Levy, I just saw you as on the average question is no possibility you were changing. Every single thing that everyone threw at you, no, can't be, yada, 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 yada. And you pointed out that there's some ambiguity there. Maybe there was a good reason to go to the undecided section. Other thoughts on this exercise before we move on? Good. All right, let's take 10 minutes. We'll come back at 2:55, and then we'll finish up with some conversation scenarios.
是我们那个公文楼，还以为我们今晚还上课呢，吓我一跳。
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How intense.
Alright, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do some real life question type of scenarios. We're going to try to use some of these techniques in those, what you might call difficult conversations. And remember, there was a couple concepts we talked about when you're interacting with someone and trying not to put them in an emotional hijack. You can use questions versus statements, and we, if other things, all things equal, prefer a question, because a question engages someone in a cerebral conversation, and also a question can be less likely to put someone in an emotional hijack situation if you ask it in a delicate manner. The other thing we talked about was this idea of intention versus impact that we need to be cognizant of when we're engaged in a conversation with someone. Can someone in class summarize that point for us? Intention versus impact. Go for it, Brian.
So I think with the intention, it's like you can intend to say something, but you're not saying it, so it's under the breath. So there's a gap between what the listener is going to interpret and have an impact from your intention. So we talked about the cliff, like there is a gap. How do you bridge the gap?
Yes. So intention and impact are different. I have an intention of having a positive conversation with you. The impact is you feel threatened, you feel that your job is in danger. And what was one of the ways, I guess probably the only way we really talked about overcoming that gap?
I remember you mentioned adding qualifiers, saying the reason why I bring this conversation is trying to help solve this problem rather than have a wider scope so people guessing what's your
Yeah, I called them labels. I wouldn't say qualifiers. Qualifiers imply some other things, but label. So this is my intention. I see that you are getting a little nervous, or you might be a little nervous about this conversation, but I want to clarify. And when you respond, label, label, label. So intention versus impact, this is a big problem. I mentioned this idea that the first person, or the first time I learned this material, the facilitator liked to use this saying that evil gets way too much credit in the world. People are so rarely evil. They so rarely have bad intentions. Much more often, there are people with good intentions and bad skills. So we want to not have this evil stuff in between our intention and impact gap. We instead want to label. I want to say, this is why I'm starting this conversation. This is why I'm responding. What may look like I'm angry is not that I'm angry, it's just that I'm excited about this opportunity. And we talked about we talked about, I guess, 8 different ways to approach that. If you're initiating a conversation, you have intentions, there are words you can say to clarify your intentions. If you want to determine the impact on the person you're having this conversation with, there are ways that you can distinguish that. The person you initiate a conversation with may say something back to you. You want to find out their intentions rather than assume that they don't like your idea. And